How do I get a girlfriend? This is the question that drives a lot of people to seek out a channel like mine because they want help in their dating life. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to be celibate. They want to experience romance and relationships and all of that stuff. And what they see on my channel is me consistently saying that the traditional ways that you're seeing, recommended for men to meet women, going out to bars, going on Tinder, God help us, are actually a disaster. What you need to do is to focus on your social circle. But somebody on my Patreon community wrote to me a little frustrated saying, Alexander, you keep saying this, but I don't know how to do that. Can you please create a video that's a step-by-step guide for somebody who has no friends? How do I create a social circle? All right. Game on, let's do it. This is what this video is. If you wish that you had a more robust social life, then watch this video. Now, the end goal here is for you to have a lot more friends. But before we even get to that, first, I want to focus on the friends that you do have. If you want a better social life, the easiest thing for you to do in the first instance is to simply increase the amount of time that you're spending with your current friends. So if you have a buddy that you see once a month, see him once a week. And also, stop saying no to social invitations. So many guys complain about not having the social life that they want. But then when an event does come up and they're invited to it, they find some excuse to not go. I'm not feeling well. I've got a test tomorrow. I've got to go in for work on the weekend. I'm not sure if I can make it. Well, my question to you is, how much are you actually prioritizing your social life? This is not just going to magically happen. If you don't make expanding your social circle a top priority in your life, then it's never going to get any better. And I would also challenge the legitimacy of all of the excuses that you currently use to get out of social situations. Are you really not feeling well? Is the thing you have on tomorrow for work really that important? Or are you just scared? I get it. It's vulnerable to put yourself out there, to risk rejection, to risk failure. It's nice to just stay home, watch TV, play video games, whatever that might be. But I'm telling you, you've got to step up. Previous generations had plenty of opportunity to demonstrate their masculine courage. They're often having to go to war and things like that. Our generation's a lot softer in that regard, and we're a lot more comfortable in our own kind of bubble of safety. But I'm telling you, you've got to just rip that out. If you're a young guy and you're watching this, I'm telling you, what courage has to look like for you and your generation is confronting your emotional demons, risking vulnerability, risking failure, risking rejection, looking fear right in the face and saying, okay, but I'm still going to do it. You want a social circle? It's time to step up. No more excuses. As a young guy, you just cannot afford to play it safe in this regard, because I'll tell you something, it's a lot harder to make friends the older that you get. The prime time to create a friendship circle, to have a vibrant social life, is before people have children. But if you wait until your mid-30s before you start trying to create a vibrant social circle, guess what? All the people your age, they've all partnered up and they've got children. If you don't have children yet, then now is the time to focus on this. Let's get you some friends. Let's create for you a vibrant social circle. So those are my first two pieces of advice. Really simple. Focus on the friends that you have, increase the amount of time that you spend with them, and also stop saying no to social invitations. Really easy to implement. But what do you do if you're genuinely starting from zero? Like recently I had a Hey Hero consultation. That's the site where people ask me advice. I create personalized videos for them if anyone's interested in that service. But this guy was new to London. He just immigrated there and he'd left all of his old friends behind. And he's thinking, how on earth do I just start a whole new life here? How do I even begin to make friends? And so he reached out to me for help. If that describes you, then let's talk about that. Let's talk about what to do to start a social circle from legitimately zero. Okay, first things first, your dating life is not your top priority. I know you're probably lonely, you're probably horny, and you wish that you had a girlfriend because that kind of intimacy would seem like the appropriate salve for your current situation. But I'm telling you, now's not the right time to focus on that. It's putting all of your eggs in one basket, because even if by some miracle you do match on Tinder with a high quality girl and you have a relationship, if she's the only thing that you've been focusing on, if she ever dumps you or you want to break up with her, you're back from zero. That's not a safe way to create a social life. I'm talking about a ground up approach where you build up a solid community of bros and women. So my first question to you is, where are you meeting women in the natural course of your life? Like, I assume if you're some guy who's just immigrated to London, you haven't done that so that you can be homeless on the street. You've come to study, you've come for a job. That right there, that's your first place to look for friends. You need to identify those individuals in your university course or your workplace or whatever that you get on with the best. And then you need to increase the intimacy of those relationships. Right now, you're just work colleagues or study buddies. Push it one step further. You've got to make an effort to see those people socially outside of that traditional place. And here's the most important thing. You have to be proactive. This goes against the dream, the fantasy that so many guys have when they are wishing they had a better social circle is that they wish some charismatic guy or girl would just swoop them up into their world, invite them to a bunch of events, a whole bunch of parties, introduce them to people, and all that they have to do is just say yes. That's not going to happen. That's a fantasy. That's a delusion. If you want things to be happening for you socially, you need to be the one to make it happen. Because guess what? While you're waiting for someone else to invite you to some social event, some social party, everyone else is also waiting. That's the sad truth of it, is that nobody's actually taking action because they're hoping somebody else will do it, because it's easier, it's safer. No one's demonstrating any kind of masculine courage to put themselves out there, to risk failure, to risk rejection and make it happen. And the fact that everyone's playing it so safe has resulted in this unbelievably tragic epidemic of loneliness. Like you, right now, I want you to make a guess. What percentage of young adults in the United States experience chronic loneliness? They did research on this. We have the data. What percentage of young people are seriously lonely? It's 61%. That's absolutely insane. That is an epidemic. If you don't want to be part of that statistic, then you've got to make something happen. In your fears and worries, what you're probably concerned about is that when you invite people to some social engagement, to some event that you're throwing, that people are going to say no, that people are going to laugh at you. Look, that might happen every now and then, and you do need to steel yourself somewhat against failure and rejection. Be prepared for that. But it's not nearly as likely as you might imagine, because with 61% of the population chronically lonely and everybody waiting for somebody else to make the social events happen, when you actually put yourself out there and you invite people to things, you're probably going to get a hugely positive response because people are going to be so grateful. Oh, yes, thank you. I'd love to. Anything to get me out of my shell of loneliness. So here's the practical tip that you need to implement whenever you're encountering people, and that's to have a social engagement that you want to invite people to already planned in your mind. Maybe there's a friend's party you could invite people to in a couple of weeks. Maybe there's a concert you want to go to. Maybe it's a board games night. Maybe it's hiking. Maybe it's a picnic. Maybe you have a weekly poker night at your place. Maybe a big MMA like pay-per-view is coming up and you want to invite a bunch of guys around to watch it with you. It doesn't really matter what it is. Make sure it reflects you and whatever your interests are. But what's important is that you have that in mind all the time. I've got this event coming in the future and I am actively looking and recruiting for people to come to that. This is absolutely an essential step because the social truth of it is that it's really weird to ask for guys' numbers when you don't have anything planned. Like if you say to a guy like, hey man, like I think we get on really well. I really like you. Let's swap numbers so we can do something sometime. It kind of sounds like you're hitting on him. That's pretty weird, but it's a lot less weird if you say, hey, like the UFC's got this awesome pay-per-view next week. I'm going to buy it. I'm having a bunch of guys around. I'd love for you to come. And he'll say like, yeah, all right, that sounds awesome. Let's swap numbers. Let's make it happen. But if you're really starting from zero, then it's not enough to simply draw upon like your college community or your workplace to find friends. If you're starting from zero, you've got to go even further back than that. And you actually have to go out actively looking for people to interact with. What I would recommend is connecting with people in communities and clubs that reflect your particular interests. So what are your hobbies? Do you like to sing? Do you play musical instruments? Do you like to work out? Can you join a gym? One of the best places to meet other guys are in sports teams. Men really bond well over sport. Knowing me and my personality, if I was moving to a new place, I'd probably join some like philosophical discussion group or something like that. But whatever it is, it's just got to reflect you in particular. One thing I would really recommend is learning some kind of martial arts. I would really give that my strongest possible recommendation, not just for the opportunity to make new friends, but also it's just such an important part of developing your masculinity. But let's say you're doing this, you're meeting people through your hobbies, you've looked through your workplace or your university or whatever, and you've made some connections with some guys. Well, what's realistic? I'm going to say this, as a baseline, you should have 3 social events every single week. They don't all have to be big, massive social events. It could just be like on Sunday, you go for a run with a friend, but 3 times a week, that should be your goal. That should be your minimum. If you object to that, you say, Alexander, I've got study to do. I've got work that's really important to me. I have other obligations. I can't, dedicate that much time to my social life. My response to you is you're not taking this seriously. A vibrant social circle with lots of friends is not just going to fall into your lap. If you don't prioritize this, it's not going to happen. And while your study and your work might be important, let me tell you something about life is that success means nothing if you have nobody to share it with. Friends, girlfriends, family, your connections with other people are actually what make life sweet and worth living. If you're not prioritizing it, You should. Now, eventually, the goal that we're shooting for is that you have such a wide social circle, you have so many friends that there are a constant stream of social invitations coming towards you. And it's easy for you to then pick and choose the ones that interest you. But understand that is the long-term goal. That's not going to be how things start. In the beginning, you need to be the social hub. You need to be the one making things happen. You need to be making your own events and then inviting people to them. And in the instance that you are actually invited to something else, then you need to ask if you can bring a couple of friends and invite them to that event as well. It's all about placing you at the center of this sort of social network. God, that sounds bad. That phrase is completely ruined. But the key here is creating a series of social obligations, because when you invite somebody to an event of yours, they're going to feel compelled to invite you to the next thing that they're throwing. And if you bring a couple of friends along to an event that you've been invited to, again, they're going to feel indebted to like the host of the party or whatever, but also to you for bringing them along. It's not going to be a one-to-one trade. You're probably not going to get as many invitations back as you put out there, but that's all the more reason to just be doing a bunch of them. You do this for long enough, then eventually you will be meeting new people on a regular basis, which is what you want, because now it allows you to actually implement the end game strategy for the social circle refinement. I call it social leapfrogging, and while you can look at this in a very cynical way, I actually think that it's just smart. It's the best way to ensure that you end up in a social circle with high quality individuals. So it looks like this. Remember when I said earlier that at the workplace or at one of your hobby events or whatever like that, you want to focus on the individual that you get on the best with? It's important that you're strategic and very selective about who you choose to try and make friends with, because if you've chosen a person of like mind who has similar values and is of similar quality to you, then guess what? That person probably already has a fully developed social circle of their own that you can be invited into. And all of those individuals will have similar values and similar qualities to yourself. The reason why I call it social leapfrogging is because you are constantly leaping into new social circles. And it works like this, because let's say you invite some guy to one of your poker nights and he has a great time, and then he invites you to a party a few weeks down the line. Now, you like this guy, you get on really well, but he's not exactly perfectly matched for you. He's not going to be your best friend. Well, guess what? His party is probably going to be filled with people of similar quality, but within that party, you're probably going to be able to identify a couple of individuals who are more close to you in terms of values and quality. When you're at that party, you zone in on those people, and then you make that extra effort to get to know them. Using the strategies that we've already discussed, you have an event in mind and you invite them to it. As this cycle of reciprocity continues with each new event that you go to, if you're constantly finding the people who more closely align with your values and your quality, then you should always be refining your social circle. And if you do this 5 or 6 times, you're going to find yourself with your true people, the people who get you, the people who have similar goals and aspirations. As an interesting side note, I would particularly recommend focusing on befriending guys who have girlfriends, because if one of the end goals of this is to have a social circle that includes both men and women, then finding guys who are in relationships is the best way to do that, because his girlfriend is going to have a whole bunch of female friends. I've talked about this already in my video, High Quality Women, How to Meet Them. I'll put a link to that down below if you haven't seen that one yet. But don't be discouraged if in the first couple of months, even though you're going to lots of social events and you're hosting lots of things, if the people that you're surrounded with aren't necessarily on your level yet. That's okay. It's not meant to be. You're not going to strike gold straight away. That's why this social leapfrogging process is so important, to refine the quality of those people that you're surrounded by. You might be saying, Alexander, this sounds exhausting. This sounds like so much effort. I have to be making friends all the time, planning events, and then even when I go to those events, I can't relax. It's just an opportunity to meet new people, and on it goes. Is this really worth it? Yes, of course it is. I've never met anybody who has a vibrant social life who regrets what he did to create it. There is some short-term pain. You have to put in a lot of effort at the start, but your reward is potentially a lifetime of good friends. If right now you don't have many friends, you're not satisfied in your social life, if you choose to follow the strategy that I've outlined in this video, in 6 months, your life will be completely different. That's the roadmap. All that's left is for you to walk it. Have you ever seen in my comment section the occasional person saying, like, I would only ever want to marry a virgin? And have you thought about that for yourself? Like, is that what you would want, to be with a woman who's never been with another guy? Is that important? Would it make me intimidated? Would it make me excited? What exactly is the appeal for a man in marrying a virgin? And is this a reasonable thing to shoot for? That's the topic of my latest video that I covered in Patreon, and it's a really good one. We get into some very personal stuff, and it stimulated a lot of great discussion in the comment sections. One of the things that I really like about my Patreon community is that it's not just about my videos. There's a bunch of really dedicated individuals there who, under each video, have really fascinating discussions. If you'd like to be a part of that community, if you want to see that video plus every other video I've ever created for my exclusive catalog, then go over to my Patreon. It only costs $5, which isn't much to just experiment. Like if you've got $5 free, give it a try. Sign up to my Patreon. See what I've got on offer there. All of the topics, all the videos are completely listed in terms of their categories, so you can find the videos that are relevant to you and see if they're useful. I think the quality is amazing. I think $5 is incredibly affordable. I'd love to see you over there so that you can be a part of our community.